We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
WESN.
Hello there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. A very good day to you indeed. A new day brings about new hopes, new opportunity, and hopefully good things to come. Hopefully. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. We got a packed lineup for you, so we are not going to waste any time in getting to the first conversation. What is happening in respect to the political landscape in Trinidad, particularly with alternatives? Whilst alternatives exist, is there a possibility that we may have new parties that are being birthed just 1 year before a general election is due? In fact, what is happening within the United National Congress is there is a conversation being had that within the United National Congress, things aren't so great. So there may be a breakaway party that is being formed. That's at least according to one post on a social media page entitled Unity is Power. In fact, that post said Unity in Diversity, a new political era is on the horizon. Well, one individual may not be able to give me some information. I don't know. I'll try and get it out of him this morning. Is the Member of Parliament for Mayaro, Mr. Rushton Parry. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to the program.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your program this morning.
Well, Mr. Parry, I will start by asking you very simply, following a grueling internal election, which is very much behind us, you've continued your work as a Member of Parliament, you've continued your work as a member of the opposition. However, what is your relationship with the United National Congress as we speak?
Well, I mean, I remain a committed member of the United National Congress. There was a constitutionally due election, which every member of the party, including those who would have been on my slate, had a constitutional duty to follow. The way how the campaign evolved, there were many areas that I did not like. We kept our campaign to the point, no mudslinging. I think it was a very mature campaign. We stuck to the issues, raised about party issues. And we went to the polls, and for whatever reasons, the result went one way. But, we walked away with one or two things. One, we were able to gather over 4,000 votes out of the 13,000 votes that were casted. I think we had the support of the country behind us. I think we were able to breathe a breath of fresh air into the United National Congress and the country at large. Today, the issues that I raised as the head of that slate, it's still there. So the matters that we raised during the campaign has to be addressed, because we do feel, plus the 4,000 people who would have voted for us, still see these matters to be addressed by the new leadership of the party. In answering your questions about my relationship, I have no problem with my party. None at all. I remain a committed member of the United National Congress, the version of the party that I joined 10 or 12 years ago. That is where my commitment is. I have issues with some of the decisions that is being made by the leadership of the party. And as a member of the party, I have a duty and a right to call them out at times. Now, what I know, the election is over. And I will continue to campaign to fix these issues internally, respectfully, along the same line and length that I took while we were on the campaign. So my relationship with the party remains good, but communication is a two-way street. I don't know what's happening from the other side.
Well, your relationship with the party remains good. I wonder if the party's relationship with you remains good, because it seems as though yourself and members of your slate, I know that the United National Congress were hosting budget consultations across the nation, but correct me if I'm wrong, you were not even invited to your constituency's budget consultation, and it was a similar thing with other members that fell under your slate or supported you during your campaign. Does that suggest the possibility that your time with the United National Congress is starting to see its sunset?
Well, I mean, life is full of possibilities. I had a life outside of the politics. I have a life inside of the politics, and I will continue to have a life outside of the politics. I do believe there is a huge role for myself, members of my slate, in terms of the direction of Trinidad and Tobago as we go along. And I'm not fearful, Listen, politics is war, right? And it is not for the light-skinned. It is not for people of faint heart. And you have to take it in strides. I tell you this, the party would have had to adopt a position prior to the call that I made for the internal elections. A lot of people would have judged the actions, but they don't know what was the condition that was pre-existing for I to make that call. And we can leave that for a discussion for another time. But since then, I made this call concerning the elections sometime in early March of this year. And I can tell you as a fact, there has been no communication between any leaders of the party and myself up to today. None. Outside of email communications through a little WhatsApp group when you are sending general instructions, there has been no communication post that call. There's been no communications since the election has been over. Now, that being said, conversations about these budget consultations were being shared, virtually. And nobody picked up the phone and said, well, Barry, look, what will be a good day for you in Mayaro? All of a sudden, I saw a date for Mayaro, which was the 14th of August, I believe. When I saw the date, I reached out to the chairman of the party and the general secretary, which is what you do in an organization, and said, listen, guys, I saw a date. However, I have foreign travel scheduled. I have vacation planned out with my family. I do have children in university away. And this date would be bad. But I am available at this date. I'm available after that date. And if you can't change the date, what assistance do you need from me? So whatever I can do prior to the budget, let me know. There was no response to the email, and I suspect there was no requirement for my assistance. So I conducted myself in an appropriate way. I made sure I reached out to the leaders of the party and let them know I'm not yet, but I'm willing to help. Nothing was asked for. I proceeded on my vacation. And that was the rationale behind my absence during the budget consultations. Even up to today, I shadow the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I speak on finance and the economy. As you know, I speak on digital transformation. I have businesses in IT. And a manifesto was waved on Monday night. A manifesto was waved on Monday night. And I can tell you, not one single question was asked of me and my portfolio in determining what is inside that manifesto. So, I mean, I do not want to be, subjective in any particular area of what the party is thinking. But I am saying, if you have MPs who have been managing shadow portfolios for years, which I have been doing, and all of a sudden a manifesto pops up in the air, well then clearly they've been talking to somebody else, not me. But I wait my turn. There's a budget that is coming. We will all speak at the budget, and I will continue to do the work that I started many, many years ago, and I will continue to speak on these matters.
What about your work in other areas? For example, as I mentioned in my introduction, there seems to be a new political era on the horizon, and those are words I'm quoting in verbatim from a post, a social media page, states to be Unity is Power, Trinidad and Tobago. And thus far, if one was to read that post, it speaks, quite frankly, to a number of themes that you highlighted this morning, such as the failure of the current UNC leadership to unite the party, the omissions of MPs from UNC budget consultations, the alienation of young professionals from within the party, and other disaffected groups that stem from the party. It says that an agreement has been struck to form a third group. Do you have any role to play in this agreement, or any role to play in the formation of what is deemed to be UPTT?
Well, it's oddly enough that UP, which was the lettering that we used during our campaign for the United Patriots, I can tell you that I personally have nothing to do with that. As far as I am aware, none of the 4 MPs who would have, been in United Patriots, none of them is actively involved in any splinter that is going to be I wouldn't say anti-UNC, but in terms of what was written in the social media post, which I saw as well. That being said, there is nothing that I disagree with in the post, right? Because during our campaign, I was very clear that a united party, we must be open to conversations with everybody. Because clearly, history has shown us you cannot defeat the PNM alone. We've seen it on several occasions. And the more fractured we are as a society, the PNM wins. And I can tell you, for whatever is the feeling inside of the party, this is growing pains. I mean, we have a young party compared to the People's National Movement, right? And what I can tell you that we are united. We are united against the PNM. We are united against crime. We are united against poor health care. We are united against a collapsing infrastructure in our education system, our roadway. So I'm sure we are united against those things. I also mentioned during the campaign that we have to be open to talk to the good, the bad, and the mad people in this country. Because if we don't have a united front against the People's National Movement, Dr. Rowley and his band of people will walk into government next year. And we cannot afford for the same ill-conceived, poorly designed, poorly thought out policies and procedures of the PNM to continue. When you look at the last 9 years, they have had enough time to correct whatever they felt were the failures of the People's Partnership. You can't come today in 2024, 15 months before general elections, and still blaming Kamala Persad-Bissessar, still blaming the People's Partnership. You have had sufficient time to take corrective measures. Problem with the PNM, they lack a depth of knowledge. I don't think they are able to source competent advice around them. I think they have been rejected by their own people, their own supporters, because of their own failures. So it is really that the UNC now, we have to get together and fix our shop. But I want to tell you something, Keaton, that the tail never wags the dog. the dog must wag the tail. There's a leadership in the United National Congress. There are 5 sitting MPs. There are councillors who have been pushed aside. There are people who have been part of our struggle that were ostracized because of the campaign. It is the leadership of the party to reach out and bring everybody back in, because the dog must always wag the tail, not the reverse.
Well, given what you said about even a party not necessarily being united in the UNC, PNM supporters are not, supporting the People's National Movement. Clearly, there is room for an alternative, and whilst alternatives exist, there's always room for more. That being said, are you surprised by this breakaway or this stray, at least what it deems to be, from the United National Congress? Do you believe that this is only beneficial to such supporters of which you've spoken up this morning?
What I would tell you is that having alternative views on matters of the country, of the politics, is a good thing. It is not bad. It is how we manage it. Because I can tell you this, since the election, I have been receiving calls from every political organization that you can find about Rushton. You know, we were very, very in support of what you guys were doing. We do feel that, there is something good that can come out. Let us talk. Now, I have been speaking with everybody, but I have made it very clear. I have no intention of leaving the United National Congress. That goes with the PNM in my arrow screened, and they have not screened anyone in the PNM for mayor. I know what is the rumors that I've been hearing. They're waiting to see what the UNC is going to do with Parry before they decide who they're going to pick. What it means is that I am a problem for both of them, the UNC and the PNM, which is a good thing. What we need is to have a massive shake in the politics in this country, because, Keaton, we are at a place in 2025 when the general election is called, where there are global headwinds that are coming. It is coming, whether we want it or not. We have issues of the regional issues, global warming, climate change, transnational organized crime. Dr. Rowley has indicated that he's going to be pushing his agenda for campaign finance reform. All of these things we have to be addressing. When you look at the fact that, Monday night, if you listen, the political leader, when she spoke, there was a grocery list of items, of things that we're going to do when we get into government, right? But what was missing in that conversation, Keaton, is how we're going to accomplish it. Now, I don't know, and perhaps it's because of my experience coming out of the corporate world, where you have to give fuller messages. One, how are we going to deal with 150 billion plus debt in terms of our public sector debt going forward? How are we going to finance all of these things that we say we're going to do, right? Where is the new streams of income is going to come from? How are we going to manage the whole issue of our collapsing infrastructure, water? I mean, to me, my gut is that we're not speaking to our young audience at all. We are not telling our young professionals that this is how we're going to accomplish this. This is how we're going to create an environment where you're going to secure good jobs post-graduating your tertiary education, where you would be able to purchase a home, raise a family, and live a decent standard of life. So we could talk about 500 things that the PNM is not doing. But if we don't say exactly what are we going to do when you give us the opportunity to take government next year, then I believe neither political party, whether it's the UNC or the PNM, has sufficient base vote to win a general election. There's about 150,000 swing voters who participate based on the issues of the day, based on the candidate selections. There are, I'll tell you this, the East-West corridor votes for a candidate based on who you put in your safe seats in. Because remember, a cabinet, a government is managers of your society. And that swing voter is going to look, well, who is this man you put in to manage my money? And if they are not satisfied with the quality and the competency of your people in the safe seats where you walk into a seat, then it will speak a lot about how they lend their support for the candidates you put on these marginal seats. So it is really you must take a huge overview of how we prepare for the general elections. And I don't believe that we are articulating clearly our position on key issues. I mean, just look at the crime issues. The Prime Minister yesterday said it's not his fault. That is a big statement. You are the Prime Minister of this country. You are head of the National Security Council. And then you are now want to blame the very same victims of crime who are suffering and say it's we fault. That is an abdication of duty. The Prime Minister has thrown his hand up in the air. He has really tossed in the towel. The only thing left for Dr. Rowley to do is to call the elections, because he has absolutely given up. So those are the things we have to be looking at.
Well, when the elections are called, Mr. Parry, coming back to the points that you were making, it's all well and good what the United National Congress is currently stating in respect to its campaign. You have expressed that in principle you support such measures, but you have also been consistent in suggesting that we need to understand exactly how this is going to be done, or how the United National Congress is going to achieve this, as you articulated this morning. However, you also indicated that a stronger UNC leadership can rebuild TNT. When the election bells are officially rung by current Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, in your opinion, is the United National Congress currently in a position to be genuine contenders to challenge or to be the next government of TNT?
No, I do not believe that we are at a place right now. This is why it is the duty of every right-thinking member of the United National Congress to have a conversation internally and respectfully in terms of the changes that we have to make to prepare to win. There are those within the party that I belong to who feel that the PNM is going to collapse. Listen, the PNM didn't collapse in 9 years ago, collapse now. Listen, Dr. Rowley is a shrewd politician. Dr. Rowley has the date for the election in his back pocket. He has the treasury. He has a budget that is going to come in about a month's time. He has about 9 or 10 flagship projects that he is hell-bent on completing. Right? Let me tell you, we've seen this before in 2020 for the general elections. The conversation was that COVID had all but collapsed the PNM. You know, there were people who wanted to hang Dr. Rowley from the mast of the ship that he's sailing here. And the country voted against the United National Congress. And we must ask ourselves why. And as far as I'm aware, in the 10 years, in 9 years that I've been an MP, 2 general elections, we're going into a third, there's been a few local government elections. And I have never participated in one analysis as to why we fail or why we couldn't do better. Now, perhaps it's been done. I can't say it's not being done. But, I mean, I have a colleague stands up on Monday night at the Monday night cottage meeting and said that the UNC is the most politically powerful, diverse party in the Western Hemisphere. So if I'm to take his word for it, I think we're good. A win is a shot for us in 2025. But I'm not buying cat and bag. We have a lot of work to do. And the faster the party comes to terms with your weaknesses and starts strengthening it, the better we'll be prepared to take government in 2025. I am not convinced that we are there yet. There's a lot of work to do. I remain committed and willing to work with all my colleagues, willing to work with the leadership that is there because they were voted into power again 3 months ago. So I have no choice but to work with them, but they have to be willing to work with me. And I am an open book. I am willing to work and work hard to make sure that we prepare for government in 2025.
You've indicated that you are preparing to work with them, whether or not they are willing to work with you. Different question. So finally, Mr. Parry, given that you've heard rumors at the possibility that the People's National Movement is waiting to see what happens with Rushton Parry and the United National Congress in the next general election, whether or not he will be screened as a candidate, whether or not he has a role to play in the United National Congress's campaign for the year 2025 general election. Should that not happen, have you thought as to whether or not you would be willing to work with another party? For example, this breakaway UPTT. We'll see how that evolves, if it evolves into something further, whether or not you would play a role, or even considering that you have stated on this program that you believe yourself and your colleagues who ran under your slate still have a lot to contribute towards the development of TNT. If that be the case, would you be even willing to run on a different ticket, perhaps the People's National Movement?
I can tell you, until the day that the United National Congress decides that Rushton Parry no longer has value to them, a party with a philosophy which I agreed with in terms of what they stood for in 2015, 2014, unless that day reaches, that the UNC say, well, Parry, I'm done with you, I will remain committed, a member of our party, and work towards building a stronger UNC for a stronger Trinidad and Tobago. And that is my say on that matter. I have no intention to go to the PNM or to go to any other party right now. It is about sticking in your home, fixing your foundation, strengthening your organization, and getting us prepared for government. And if that is something that the party believes they don't want from Rushton Parry, well, at the end of the day, they have the choice to do whatever they want. And when that time comes, I will choose whatever I decide to do at that point in time. But as of today, Keaton, I remain a committed member of the party that I joined, the version of the party that I joined 10, 12 years ago, and I look forward to strengthening that organization back to where we came from. And that is where I'm standing today on that matter.
Well, Mr. Parry, thank you very much for your time this morning, and thank you for being with us. Appreciate your time and for sharing your position with currently what is happening in the United National Congress and by extension the state of affairs in TNT. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All the best. Member of Parliament for Mayor Rushton Parry with us on the program this morning. Only Time Will Tell, which is also a very good song, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, the conversations will continue. Stay with us.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us this morning. As mentioned, we have a packed program, so we'll continue with the conversations as we now focus on the first public consultation on the placement of statues, monuments, and other historical signage across Trinidad and Tobago. Such consultation took place on Wednesday, and it was held at Government Plaza. That being said, a lot happened there, so let's get into that story this morning. I'm pleased to welcome to the program the Executive Chair of the Emancipation Support Committee, Ms. Zakia Ozuma-Wadada. Good morning and welcome to AM Prime.
Yes, good morning, and welcome to your viewers, and thank you so much for having me this morning.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the program. As I mentioned, a lot happened.
Yes.
There are stories circulating suggesting what happened, but please, can you share your experiences exactly what took place on Wednesday at the first public consultation?
Yes. Well, of course, the Emancipation Support Committee was invited to participate in the consultation. We've had an audience with the committee previously. We were able to speak with them, you know, on as an organization, along with the Caribbean Freedom Project. So we did have a consultation with them previously. We've also submitted a document, you know, with really quite a bit of information. But of course, on the invitation, I also agreed that I would participate. You know, we would attend because it's important, even in the public spaces, who represent your organization. And I also, at that time, spoke on behalf of the National Committee on Reparations, of which I am the deputy chair. So our chairperson, Dr. Claudius Vergas, was not on island, and he asked that I represent the committee. So I was making the point to the public that Trinidad and Tobago is celebrating its 62nd year of independence on Saturday, and that we are close to 50 years of republic, because in September we will be celebrating 48 years as a republic, you know, and it is really time that we give due consideration, and it's happy that this conversation is in the air, because it is really, really past the time for us to look at how our physical space represents us, you know, and we cannot perpetuate space that is reflective of the ideals of those who, the Europeans who once controlled the space, because they would have put into the space the monuments that they considered to be important, that represented the persons or the things that were important to them. And they named the streets and so on after persons that were important to them. And we can't, you know, especially as a republic, you know, because even independent status, you still have the previous colonial government as your head of state. But as a republic, we are a fully independent nation. nation that can make its own decisions. And therefore, I think that at 50 years, of almost 50 years, it is time that we really, really begin to consider how our physical space represent our ideals, represent our values, and we put into that space the names or monuments of persons whom we hold in high esteem and who we would want our children to emulate. So that's mainly the point I was making. And I also stress that because we are in the final year of the decade for people of African descent, the ongoing cry for Oxford Street to be renamed Kwame Ture Street, we should really actually do that as part of the commemoration of that decade, and so that, you know, at least one of our heroes of African descent is recognized in Trinidad and Tobago, and Oxford Street is the street on which where he grew up, that's where he lived, that's where he spent his first formative years, you know. So there was a gentleman in the audience who was not too happy with what I was suggesting, and which is okay, because that's why we have public consultations to get different views. But I think his approach and his attitude was quite disrespectful, and I think that's what really caused that you know, bit of contention in the space. And then particularly he topped it off when when I mentioned, you know, that we were in the decade for people of African descent. I don't know if that's what stimulated his making of the comment that then, you know, why don't I go back to Africa? Of course, from where he says it, of course, we know it is a, you know, a kind of disdainful, kind of disrespectful remark. But I mean, asking us to go back to Africa is not insulting in the sense that, you know, we don't have any problems returning to Africa. We don't have any problems, you know, returning to our homeland, because it is that we have not rejected that as part of our own history, you know. But of course, you know, he did not say it in any positive way. But as I said, people are going to respond to things from where they are. And yes, that can be with respect to your information, but of course, politeness and being respectful is something that, you know, we should always perhaps keep in mind. You know, no matter how we feel about things, we have to find an appropriate way in which to express ourselves. You know, so he kept talking during my presentation until, of course, persons in the audience started to object and insist that he was put out of the room, that those kinds of responses came from some of, you know, fellow activists in the room. But then eventually, I think Mr. Lawrence, he did a really good job in trying to, you know, placate the situation and bring things back to put order back into the space. And of course, eventually, the gentleman himself was also allowed to speak, you know. But again, it was reflective based on his contribution. It was reflective of, you know, and he said that his responses were based on what he said he was taught in school. So of course he thought that the first people were savages, and he said it, you know, and he also thought that, you know, people like Stokely Carmichael, who we did not refuse to call Kwame Ture, you know, was a troublemaker, who the previous prime minister had asked to not, has banned from the country. And therefore, you know, why would we want to make someone like that a hero or someone who we should, you know, venerate, you know? But I think it showed that lack of appreciation and understanding of all of the histories of all the peoples who live here. You know, none of us came here because we wanted to come and party and have a good time. The enslaved persons were terribly traumatized by the arrival of Europeans in this space. You know, they brought their diseases, and I mean, they got very ill. They had to work really hard against their will. They were forced to become Christians. All of these things took place for the first peoples. And then when the number of the first peoples were decimated to such a point that they now brought in Africans as enslaved persons. You know, we didn't come to have a good time. We came and suffered a lot of trauma and disrespect and pain. And then even then we went on to indentured laborers. They didn't come again to have a good time. They came to work for very little money and to do very hard work to build the empires of European nations.
If I may, I know previously earlier this year, I think it was for Emancipation Day celebrations, yes. And the Prime Minister in his message, he says he wants Trinbagonians to feel proud of their culture. We should be proud of our culture. The thing is, though, do you think that removing these statues would actually render us being more proud of our culture, who we are as a people? Do you think that removing these statues would actually resolve the issues? Because previously you've expressed that though we have been emancipated, full emancipation has not been realized as yet. Do you think that removing these statues and historical signage would actually lead to a difference, a change, something more positive?
Yes, it will. Because, one thing is, everything has its own energy. And also, when we put into our spaces, so for example, if we have our children, for example, if they're growing, and we have statues of people like Pat Bishop, we have statues of C.L.R. James in our space, Henry Sylvester Williams, representatives of the heroes of the First Peoples, of the Indian community, of our Chinese community, all the people who live here, they may have persons who they would like to hold in high esteem. If we are able to surround ourselves with that kind of energy of people who we revere, who make significant contribution to who we are, because that's the reasons why Europeans had those people up. They thought that Columbus was a great representative of themselves because he opened the pathway for their exploitation of a whole lot of people and enrichment of themselves. So they held him in high esteem. They held people like Picton and Woodford and all of those people in high esteem because they contributed to their ideal, to their goals. We now have to know who are the people that are contributing to the same culture for which we should feel proud. Who are the people that have contributed to who we are today? So that when we tell our children these stories, are they going to find something that they should emulate? Oh, I would love to be like Pat Bishop. She was such a great artist, a musician. She was such an important person in our society. I would love to be like a C.L.R. James, who worked so hard for the liberation of African people and contributed so well to the independence of countries on the African continent. So we are giving, once we put it, we are giving them stories about their own capacity and the possibilities that there are. When we name streets after, Lord Kitchener, we name a street as has been done in the past after Black Stalin. When we name these spaces after the persons who we hold in high esteem, we are also presenting to the society and to the children stories about us. You see? And therefore, it is really important and it will make a change over time. It will indeed, because our children, our young people, the actual public cannot connect. So we are walking through the city of Port of Spain and people have no idea.
I hear the point. I hear the point that you're making.
Yes.
But do we also need to recognize that this was a part of our history, and that we also, though we are not, we don't like it, and we are struggling to accept it at times. Do you think that we need to be very careful that we don't wash our history, and that we understand that, listen, through all these turbulent times, through all the toils and plights of the people and what they went through, still a nation was birthed. Do we have to be very careful that we are not trying to remove that part of our history as yet?
Not at all, because you see, the history is not going to change. The history is still in the books, and we can still teach them to our children. But then what we put in our physical space is not just about us remembering our history, it is about the energy that we are putting in the space as well. You see? So that we have to now decide. Yes, the fact the people are going to always tell the story of Columbus, but by focusing on their history and the history that was presented to us by the Europeans, we don't focus on our own history. So our children don't know of some of the people's names that I have called. Our children don't know of the, enough perhaps of the Butler riots and why it was significant and important to Trinidad and Tobago. Our children don't learn in school about the Black Power Revolution and why it was important to Trinidad and Tobago. So there are things that have occurred as part of our history, of our living history, that we don't emulate, that we don't hold in high esteem, and we don't teach our children. And therefore, if we continue to perpetuate a space and focus on a history that was Eurocentric, inaccurate in a lot of ways, you follow, then we are doing a serious disservice to ourselves as a growing nation. That we have to, and that's what I was saying, even the traumas of our experience of the different groups, we don't remember that. We don't remember the heroes that helped to pull us out of that particular space. We remember very much those who put us into that space, but what about those who fought for us to come out of that experience? We're not remembering those people. We're not highlighting those people. So why would we have in our physical space all our oppressors and not our heroes, the ones who helped us to overcome? And therefore, moving physical things or renaming things does not necessarily equate to lost history. That history is still there, and we can still choose to teach it, but it does not have to be in our face.
So
that is what I'm saying.
So, okay, I understand that. But though we may be in the process, this transition of cultural identity, because the argument that you're making is that we don't necessarily have a sense of identity of who we are as a people. This is why this process is very important. Renaming it or removing these statues is one aspect of it, but surely this has to coincide with our school curriculum as well. And this has
most definitely. You understand, and that has been a call, and that's why we ourselves, we do our own African history quiz for secondary schools, so that we have an opportunity as an organization to give the children that education about at least the African heritage of Trinidad and Tobago that they don't get in school. You see? And the thing is that is extremely important, because it must come with the education. You see, the naming of the streets and so on, you have to know who these people are. Why are we calling the street after this person? Why are we erecting this monument? So therefore, therefore perhaps, if those are the things that are in our spaces, maybe that might even help to strengthen the need to change the curriculum. Because then our children are going to maybe start to ask questions. You see, so that the education system must include the education of the history of Trinidad and Tobago, the history of the different peoples who came here. We may want to do it at different points and different levels in the system, in the trajectory of the children, primary, secondary, university. But we must understand the history of the different peoples who came here. Why are we only understanding the history of Europeans? You see? So, but we don't understand the history of what happened to who were Indians before they came to Trinidad and Tobago, who were Africans before they came here, who were Chinese before they came here. And it is important. I don't accept this feeling that there's no Mother Africa, there's no Mother India. Yes, there are. And they are important because it shapes who we are. And the fact that and perhaps particularly in the case of the Africans, that our identity has been removed, access to our language or to our spirituality or to even our own worldview would have been taken away from us, and we would have been sort of, what you would call it, brainwashed into having a European perspective on life. Does not mean that we should not find out who we are. And if we understand the history, of all the groups that are living in society, it's going to build a better respect and understanding of each other.
Now, 1 year ago, you called on the government to invest in TNT's culture, to inspire a sense of identity. That message has not changed. You've been very passionate at the consultation. You've been passionate here this morning. But one of the comments, which was rather interesting, being 1 year ago, you said a sense of identity among Afro-Trinidadians could ultimately reduce crime. Right? 1 year ago, you made that comment, and you said that black people suffered a loss of self because of slavery, adding the effects remained etched in the psyche of locals. Again, something of which you mentioned this morning. You said the oppression has lent itself to a cycle of violence, but more firearm user licenses was not the answer. That's a different point entirely. We don't have to get into that. But I'm curious to know exactly how inspiring a sense of identity and culture would actually ultimately reduce crime. I'm going to that. That's a comment you made 1 year ago, and I'd like you to explain it a bit further.
Okay. So, the country where we live is very much impacted because the world has become such a, what you would call it, a small space, because there's so much access to information on what's happening outside of our own shores. Mm-hmm. So if we are observant, we would note that the world has sort of embraced this culture of violence, power, and materialism. And it is what we here in Trinidad and Tobago, so many of our young people have also bought into that culture, because it is also manifested at the highest levels of society. This focus on materialism and power, and their violence may not be as physical as the violence that is demonstrated at the level of the grassroots. But there's also violence. And then, of course, in some cases, it explodes into major wars as we fight over power, you see? And we use violence to do that. If, as a human being, there is nothing else, there's no alternative understanding of this living experience, if there's no alternative understanding of who I am in this space, if there's no alternative culture that allows us to see ourselves as different from a tool or someone who is just being what we call it, absorbed by this culture of violence and materialism, then we don't have an option to fight. We don't have an option not to fight within that, but to fight against it. You see? So that we have to put into the space for our children a better understanding of themselves and link them to the cultural things that bring that sense of self to them and their own value, and that their value is not determined by material acquisition, and therefore I have to fight for that. Or my value as a human being is not determined by if I am more powerful than this other person, and therefore I have to fight for that. But my value is in, my being, my link, my connections with the unseen energies of life, how I perceive success, how I perceive achievement, how I perceive growth and development as a human being, how I understand my purpose while I am here. You see, and those things come out of our cultural traditions. And those of us here in the country who are still able to hold on to those traditions understand what I am talking about, because it gives you a sense of self. But because as a group in the society, we have been denied that, we were denied that, we now have to try to find it, you see? And if it is we don't find it, then we are like, those, like a tree without roots. and therefore shaft blowing in the wind, as if I want to use a biblical expression, which can be taken up by any wind or force that is passing. And therefore, if we don't ground our children in some sense of culture, who we are, what is valuable, what makes sense, what is important, what makes me an important human being, what makes me valuable, then they buy into this culture that their value is linked to what they have. And if they don't have it, then they would fight for it, because that's how they believe people put value to them in the society. You see? So
very, very interesting perspective indeed. Yes. My final question to you is it's to the topic. It's just a bit away from the general theme of the conversation this morning. One of the suggestions that have been made at this consultation, this first public consultation, that has been expressed previously many a times, is that we should also look to be renaming our capital city Port of Spain. Where do you stand on that?
I mean, I understand the rationale. Why is the city of Trinidad, the capital city of Trinidad, called the Port of Spain? We go back again to the history, because when it was ruled by Spain, it was appropriate for Spain to call the city Puerto de España, and we have decided, and it has been changed. Now some people say, okay, for prosperity, lots of things would take, but it makes sense. Whether we decide that that's something we want to do, but someone asking to do that makes sense. Why is the capital of Trinidad and Tobago called the Port of Spain? You know what I'm saying? So we have to decide, okay, all right, we can live with that, or do we want to give our capital city a name that is reflective of our own vision for our city? You see, these things are up for discussion. These things are not absurd in their in the thought process, because what the person is saying makes sense. You follow? But we have to decide, do we want to hold on to it because we said, okay, that's how we got the name, we want to hold on to it, but we do have the right, if we so do not no longer want to be called the Port of Spain, because we are no longer the Port of Spain, we are the Port of Trinidad and Tobago, but the part of Port of Trinidad, we can decide to call it what we want to call it. And you see, that's what I think people need to understand. As a Republican state, we can call our cities, we can name our spaces, we can erect the monuments that we choose. We have that right. The process of doing that, what we change and what we don't change, it has to be part of maybe a national discussion. But the fact is that people must understand that we have the right to do it, and there's good rationale for doing it.
Indeed. Well, Ms. Kia Uzuma Wadada, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you for your time and for expressing your thoughts and opinions with us on these public consultations. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your viewers.
All the very best. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't had the opportunity to do this previously, but I will tell you a story about my interaction, my first in-person interaction with Ms. Kia Uzuma Wadada. I actually, on Tracker Road, I shut down. I was a bit further away from the office, and interestingly enough, I shut down. My car wasn't starting. I think it was a battery problem at that point. Ultimately, it was. But the rain was coming, and Miss Uzuma Wadada stayed. She tried to assist. She pulled out her starter pack from her vehicle. She came to my vehicle. This lady, it's going about to rain, and when I say rain, I'm not talking about it was dark. It got dark, and she stayed and she assisted me, and I'll never ever forget that. And I think that really, ladies and gentlemen, is something that those are the little lessons, and those are the little instances that all of TNT must practice. You see, that sort of love and appreciation for one another, I certainly will never ever forget that. So thank you very much to her for that. I'm glad I could finally say it, boy. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. We will return shortly to wrap things up for this morning. Stay with us.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. as we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation. Contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning. So we've had a wide range of topics, and it doesn't end there. Actually, we've got one more discussion to get into because school reopens on Monday, and I don't think everyone is going to be happy with that. Some parents might think, oh, some sort of reprieve after 2 months. Some teachers might think, oh God, back to this. And of course, me, I'm a bit selfish. I keep thinking, crikey, the traffic is just going to be horrendous. That's all associated with school reopening here in TNT. What should not be associated with the reopening of schools is questions as to whether or not my school will be actually open on Monday for me to attend classes. And those questions, that's with a number of schools across Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the Minister of Education, Dr. Nian Gaspi-Dolly, indicated that 20 million was spent on school repairs. Initially, the cost was 18, but she hoped that all repairs that were earmarked would be completed in time for Monday. In fact, today, the Ministry of Education has noted that there will be 3 schools that will be commissioned. That is the, let me just get it here for you, the Sisters Road Anglican Primary School in New Grant, the Holy Cross Anglican Primary School, and the Southern Main Road in Marabella, and St. George's College in Barataria. Those are 3 schools. But what about all the other schools? I'm joined this morning by the Tutor Tobago officer, Mr. Braden Roberts. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Good morning, and good morning to the family at your program.
Thank you very much. You were on just about 3 weeks ago to give us an update as to the preparedness for schools across the island. But you are part of the executive of Tutor, of course. So we appreciate you joining us this morning. Based off of what you know and all that has been said to you, all the information that you have at hand, could we expect a smooth transition into the new academic year come Monday?
Well, we have had over the years where the minister and the secretary in Tobago as well, they would open schools regardless. So whether they would have dealt with the electrical issues, the plumbing issues, because of the political outlook, schools will open. And then it would be for teachers and a tutor to see how we manage the health and safety aspects of it. The disappointing thing though is education is a very serious pillar of our nation, and if we continue to treat education like this, we're going to continue what we're getting, and then we want to hire more police officers and give them guns and cars to try and pull back what we are allowing to get out of hand. So if we don't treat with the real issues of our education system, and one of them is our infrastructural makeup of our schools, then we're going to pay for it in the end. So if the minister for the political mileage would say that school's ready and was supposed to be 18 million is no money for a repair program in Trinidad. They are spending 20 or so million in Tobago, and they're doing it in phases, and very little work was done in Tobago. So I don't know that the ministry could boast of 20 million being spent on any repair program in Trinidad.
Well, it's interesting because the minister indicated that these are for critical repairs. And she mentioned that she says, we would have probably liked to have done more, but we simply do not have the funding. That is what the minister stated outside Balancey House earlier this week. That being said, at this point, you said that schools will be open, nonetheless the gates will be open. Do you expect, though, that there are schools that will not be operational?
It's highly possible, and while we say critical repairs, we have a lot of aging schools. So a lot of our schools are in a critical state. So to say that we treat them with critical repairs is not that persons are submitting for their classroom to get a nice paint up or so. It's significant issues that have been submitted over the years. In Tobago especially, we have some prevailing issues. We have major electrical issues as well, that the division this time around treated with 3 schools in particular focus. But there continue to be these prevailing things, and if we don't treat with the maintenance throughout the year, and then we have a July, August where you do this kind of repairs, then I'm not certain where we really hold education and having a safe place, because it's not just for the teachers, the students occupy the same space that the teachers are in. So it's not a tutor, it's just seeing about teachers, we are seeing about the well-being of all persons who are to be on the compound.
Who determines whether or not teachers should show up to work? The president of Tutor, Mr. Martin Lumpkin, indicated that if schools are closed, do not report to work. I would expect that if they're closed, you can't report to work. But on the day itself, who determines whether or not the school is safe enough for operations? Is it the principal or is it the school supervisor?
Right, so you would have OSH inspectors, occupation safety and health inspectors, who would then make that determination. However, it's for the person to cite wherever they believe there is a breach to the health and safety to their own being. So it's not that the minister could say to me that I am safe in the school that you're sending me to. If I go to the school and I feel unsafe for whatever reason, I give the principal an opportunity to address my concern. And if the concern is not being addressed to the level where I feel safe, I can exercise my right to refuse to work, which would then be sent an inspector, an OSH inspector, who will make sure that that claim is a legitimate claim and to make provisions for it to be treated with. But the minister and so on, in terms of opening school, that is their prerogative. They will determine which schools will be open or not. As tutor, we advise our teachers, once the school is open, you go to work. You don't refuse to work from home and believe that the school is unsafe. You go out to school, and then if there is a situation where your health and safety is compromised, then you think about the steps in doing a refusal to work.
Are there any repercussions though for teachers should OSH find that their claims are not legitimate?
They may be asked to apply for the day, but we assist our teachers in ensuring that we don't just frivolously say, I am feeling unsafe and I'm leaving the compound. We give the guidance. We have given documents to help teachers in following the procedure and so forth. So it's not that we leave teachers on their own to just decide if they're unsafe or not. We have our structure in our association where we provide that support to make sure we are not being irresponsible with that provision.
Now, another aspect of this that we spoke about approximately 3 weeks ago was the availability of teachers. Any relief in respect to the availability of teachers for the new academic year?
It's not likely to have a ready relief, and I heard that the minister spoke about having temporary teachers. In Tobago, we have a little challenge as well, where some of our secondary schools and primary schools don't have a full complement. The Teaching Service Commission, who has the authority to appoint teachers, they have serious bottlenecks. I don't believe that the Teaching Service Commission have the requisite resources to treat with the number of teachers in Trinidad and Tobago. They deal with the appointments, the transfers, disciplinary matters. They have part-time staff in certain spaces. And I do not believe that they can manage it, they have the capacity. So while we may beat upon the commission at times, and tutor, I would say, and for myself as Tobago officer, I'm not pleased with the work coming out of the Teaching Service Commission. But the resources afforded to the Teaching Service Commission will allow what is happening now. So there's likely to be shortage in some of the schools come September.
Wow, interesting. I hope it's sounding as though it's the same old. I hope it's not the case. I hope there's at least some improvements. One of the aspects that has not necessarily been focused on too much by the ministry is the need to review teaching standards and by extension the curriculum or how students are being taught. You spoke very strongly about CXA results recently, not just in Tobago, just across TNT and by extension the Caribbean. It was rather poor, very, very poor to say the least. I'm trying to be as kind as possible. But what is being done to address those issues as well? You have another academic year where students may not be able to go forward. They will have to repeat because English and maths are compulsory subjects. And then at the same time, you have a new cohort of students who are entering Form 5 to write these exams. So what is being done to address that, as well as the current strain on the education system that just conjuncts this issue even further?
Right, so let me just say, I see politics in Trinidad and Tobago, it is eroding a lot of the structures that we have. There has been a blueprint for education. So we built out the primary, the secondary, and even the tertiary sector. And then different persons come with different ideas. So instead of us evolving, persons come with the different ideas for the 4 or 5 year period because they need to impress a particular population. and we just twinkle, we pull out things, we add things, and we are going far away from that blueprint. So what I've seen in recent years where they pull back the tertiary, where education was free for tertiary level entrance as well, they would have pulled back and put some measures in place to deal with that because it was unsustainable in terms of affording such. Now we have the curriculum matters to treat with, and instead of us evolving, taking steps to lay foundation before we build going upwards, we have persons with nice ideas. So they come as politicians, they produce these nice ideas. So we currently have cultural transformation by the ministry. It was not well thought out. They had no conversation, in-depth conversation with the association. I'm not certain which team helped build this particular program, and we going off with it. We have changed the content for SEA, how the exam would be done. We are now having the national tests in between time, and we are just doing things where I do not believe there is a step-by-step and a long-term vision for how we're going to move education forward. So I'm not certain that the powers that be taking education seriously. It is as if we have some people to impress in a 4 or 5 year period, and once we can have a good soundbite in the media as if we are doing things in education, that's where the satisfaction is. And as an association, we are not pleased with that at all. We know that there are some students who are very intelligent, but they are not humble enough to sit down in class and have that discipline where they're just focused on the teacher or focused on going home and revise. We have to cater to those persons who have that level of intelligence. What it has been put in place for those persons, I am yet to see how we intend to incorporate those persons with that level of intelligence. So if you can't do the maths well, you seem to be delinquent based on our education structure.
Now, a lot of parents who are watching, the general public, their response is going to be, it's the teacher's fault. This is the teacher's responsibility. This is what the teacher is supposed to be doing. You know, it's their fault. So we can sit down and have all these conversations. Ultimately, clearly, teachers are not good at their job, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. You know, as an officer who represents teachers, what is your response to that?
Well, we can't blame each other. We could blame parents, we could blame the media, we could blame politicians, and we could blame teachers. However, the blame game doesn't solve the problem. We all need to collaborate and work on this. We have been submitting to the ministry and to the division our ideas, our recommendation. We will do our research over time. However, there's a standoffish approach, especially with the ministry, where we don't have that hunger to collaborate, where we are on that side of the fence. So the parents need to know what are the programs for the school. So if we leave parents out of the package, they would not know how to assist the same teachers that we are blaming. So teachers may submit to them, this is the program for my particular class, but there's a bigger picture. What is the program for the school? What projects are the school working on? What are the aims of the particular school for this academic year? We need to have the parents involved in that so that they will know, even if they can't do the maths and the English to help the child at home, how else I can assist with the school curriculum and with the school program. The corporate sector needs to come in because the government cannot be able to sustain the expenses of education. The corporate sector will only invest if they know what program they're investing in. Persons don't just throw money blindly at things. So we need to first have programs for our school where those different parties could be able to understand. And in terms of the teachers, I would not even spend too much time to explain all the work that teachers do. I know teachers spend a lot of their own resources in the education system for the same students that the parents are saying we're not doing enough for. So if the division and the ministry do not supply us with the resources, and we are providing the resources for ourselves, we are giving up our family time. So all weekends we're doing lesson plans because we don't have that time off during the week. I'm not certain what else we want teachers to do. We have been asking for teachers to do their best. We provide training for our teachers so that there will be continuous improvement. I know the ministry and the division do the same. But us standing back and just saying it's teachers' fault, it's the ministry fault, it's the parents' fault, wouldn't help. The children will stay in the middle and not get what is needed for them.
You said teachers donate a lot of their resources. Exactly what you're referring to. What resources are you referring to?
Well, in terms of teaching aids, the material you need for your class, if we depend on the ministry of education, wouldn't take place. So a lot of funding, sometimes the funding go to the school, let's say for September term, that funding may be received by March June next year for this to start this academic year. So what happens in the interim? Schools try to raise funds. The funds may not come readily, so teachers use their money to buy the things that the division and the ministry should be providing. Those same teachers are the teachers who are not paying the increments. Those are the same teachers who are not getting their back pay. So there are some persons who are yet to get their back pay, and those same teachers are spending their money to oppose some of the things in the school.
Now, Mr. Roberts, we don't have much time left, but we've been able, on the basis of it, school infrastructure, we've been able to cover availability of teachers, and to a certain degree, the curriculum that exists. One of the things that we haven't spoken about, even if schools are sound, the availability of furniture, whether or not we do have enough desks and chairs in the classroom, or the resources that are adequate it's for teachers to conduct their necessary classes, the availability of resources there as well. Any sort of issues there, or that seems to hopefully be one of the areas that is okay?
No, it's not one of the areas that is okay. We had a year or two ago where there were images coming out of Signal Hill Secondary School where students were standing in corners writing their notes. They were sitting on the chair, lapping their foot and writing. And some of that would happen this September because all of the secondary schools, based on what I would have seen from the principals, it's not that they want 50 chairs, it's 200 they want, 200 and something, 100 and something chairs, and then they need desks, and they need desks for teachers as well. So some teachers would buy their own chairs because the type of chair that they will also desire when there is none for teachers in the particular schools. So furniture is a significant issue, I know for sure, in Tobago, and it's both primary and secondary, but the secondary is worse. Trinidad, I've heard the reports of furniture as well, furniture shortage. So that's why I would say I'm not understanding where the vision is for education. When we don't have teachers for the schools in sufficient numbers, we don't have furniture in sufficient numbers, the funding for schools take months after they're supposed to be released for the teachers and the principals to be able to get access to that funding. The curriculum, we have not been purposefully restructuring the curriculum, so I'm not certain where we intend to go with education in Trinidad and Tobago based on the actions of those in power.
Even the direction, we have to question that. Mr. Roberts, listen, at this point, I wait to see what happens on Monday. I really wait to see what happens.
But we continue to encourage our teachers to give up their best regardless of what is afforded to us. So it's not a doom and gloom. There will always be that effort because we have to live in the same Trinidad and Tobago. If we have these children not doing well, they will come to hurt us in the end. So we continue to do our best in our profession.
Quite a profound statement. Quite a profound statement. Mr. Roberts, thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate your presence as always. And let's see what happens come September 2nd, just a couple of days away.
Right, thanks and take care.
All the best, take care. Let me, this is, my contribution. Again, we want to talk about steel plant and this and that and the other. We're spending $120 million on a new home for the steel plant, right? Because that's priority right now. But we spend between $18 and $20 million for school repairs. We're spending $120 million for a new home for plant. Nothing is wrong with a new home for plant, but I'm putting it into context, right? Nothing is wrong with that. After 20 years plus, it's happening. Okay, great. Is it necessary? Is it required? Is it something that is very much ideal at this present time? Should it be a priority? No, it shouldn't be a priority. $120 million being spent there, that is just one aspect of it. Because a lot is happening here in TNT. It seems as though we're throwing money at a lot of things. So, for example, that latest coming out of HCC contract, I think it was in a room, if I'm not mistaken, and the Office of the Procurement Regulator stepping in saying nothing was adhered to. I think the highest bidder got the contract. Money being thrown away again. We're forming committees, and we have to pay these individuals salaries, forming committees that are really doing the jobs that ministries should be doing, that the ministry that exists should be doing. For example, we have a new committee to figure out how to reduce food prices in TNT, right? But we have a Minister of Agriculture, a Minister of Trade. What's going on there? All that is happening. Salaries Review Commission, the report is going to come in shortly. The Prime Minister expects that. all that's happening, we couldn't spend this 120 million plus. We couldn't spend that 120 million plus on schools, for schools to be prepared, and if not 100% prepared or fully repaired, at least that 120 million would have covered a lot more schools. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 481 public primary schools in Trinidad and Tobago, 133 public secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. That number may have increased, right? That is to my recollection, I think a year ago. I highly doubt that number increased, though. It probably most likely decreased because of the conditions that these schools are in. Some of these schools will even get a fresh coat of paint for years. And that is what's happening here in TNT. It's frustrating, it's annoying. And I don't understand. We speak about government and governance. And go back to what was said last year. We're throwing $100 million at the Defense Force, the Army, to help with crime. I don't know what's going on with that 100 million. I don't know where it's going to, what is happening, how it's being spent. No further updates from that. Don't blame me for crime. So what? Am I not to blame you for the state of the education system as well, and the mere fact that schools are falling apart, students are failing within the school system, and parents have a role to play. I am not doubting what I'm not putting that aside. Parents have a role to play in this as well. But when you have a school infrastructure falling apart, students don't have desks and chairs, you might not have the resources to actually teach the class. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, who am I going to look at for ultimate responsibility? It's frustrating, huh? But don't worry, we're celebrating 62 years as an independent nation, and we should all be happy for that. So we look forward to the fireworks display that is going to happen tomorrow. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our show. Before we go, I thought we'd end on a bit of a good note. I got this video yesterday. It really brought a smile to my face. It's bittersweet, put it that way. It's bittersweet, but ultimately, I'll share it with you so you have an idea. This is Calypso Rose. She met with the Chief Secretary, I think, last week. And yesterday or the day before, she met with Marshall Montano. And boy, oh boy, does this lady still have it. Let's take a look at this video.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Music Man, Derek, Caribbean Radio Station. And today, we are with Miss McCarthy, Miss McCarthy, Sandy, Monica Lewis. Or which one? Did I say it wrong?
You say it right.
I say it right.
But first, MacArthur.
MacArthur, Sandy, Monica Lewis.
That's right.
She has a special visitor that came to the United States to visit her today. And that is something that she always had in her heart, that she always wants to see her young boy. She wants to see her young boy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here comes the young boy.
Hi, the young boy.
Where's my young boy?
Where, young boy?
Oh my God, look at my son.
I want to look at you.
I want a young boy. I want a young boy.
Mama Rose.
How you doing? How you doing?
I am wonderful. Roses for the Rosie.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I miss you.
I miss you. I've been hearing all the fantastic things you've been doing.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
You look so pretty.
I do look pretty.
Yes.
Yeah, because a young boy have me looking too.
Show me him. Well, let me give me that chair.
No, one second, Bill. Let me spin you. And Rosie,
yeah.
He has to introduce his wife and everybody else that's with him.
Renee, remember Renee when he was in California and he was his wife?
Where the baby?
Let me baby here.
Grandma want a baby, you know.
I baby. She has to take care of me. You know, your ICNTT. You remember Chief?
Yeah.
Management, my manager Chief.
Oh yes. How you doing?
Wonderful. So good to be here.
Okay. And this is his team here.
This is Eddie. Edison. Eddie's at Tobago, boy? No.
Eddie?
No, hold on. No. I'm gonna spin it here, and you guys sit in the chairs over here. Okay. Yeah. So she could place that over there. Yeah.
Oh yes.
When we was ripping up France.
Yeah.
Auntie Rosie, all this nice gold
How
chain
was
and
mommy?
Okay, wait. Hold on. Let's spin. Let's spin and sit down.
She come in New York tomorrow.
She going to New York tomorrow?
Yes.
Renee, Marshall, the team, however you guys want to sit, or whatever you guys want to do.
See if she could come and see her. She would love that.
Yes, I will love to see her. I will love to see her. I remember when we went to England to perform.
Yeah.
You, your mommy and me. You and your two mummies.
So good.
Oh yes, Lord. When I am here and I'm going through this kidney problem. As you know, I cannot sit straight. If I sit too straight, it's pain. So I have to sit like a sleeping. But I sit like a eating crab and dumpling.
Okay, wait. Rosie, 1 second. I want you guys to do one thing, and then I'm going to stop recording because I don't want to give away everything that you guys are discussing. And I want Marshall's team to record because what he's going to be doing, he's using this for his segment on what he's doing. But before I stop recording, I want you guys to sing Young Boy. All right? And this is going to make something perfect. So there you go, Marshall. Take it.
I say the younger the youth. I say the stronger the juice. The stronger the youth.
When it's out of the booth, Angela, why you crying? Why you bawling? Why you moving behind your husband? No, we dead and gone. Remember how we treat you and forsake you and he lead you for a girl named Sue, who younger than you. Now we dead and gone, woman, you're free. I beg you, please, don't weep. Who you must look for?
Young boy.
Who you must look for?
Young boy.
Who will wipe your eyes?
Young boy.
And tell you don't cry.
Young boy.
Kiss you on your nose.
Young boy.
Wipe down to your toes.
Young
boy. I want a young boy.
Hey, and who will bring you a rose?
Young boy.
All right.
Young boy, yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that certainly put a smile to my face. Marshall Montano visiting Calypso Rose. I think that was in New York. Yes, Rose is going through a difficult time with her kidneys. But that being said, the lady still has a golden smile and a golden voice. What a wonderful video, ladies and gentlemen, to wrap things up. A legend, as she says, Mama Rose, Marshall's wife. Where the baby crowns a baby. Great, fantastic things, ladies and gentlemen. And these are the people we should be celebrating. These are the people who really have given us a lot. Well, Trinidad and Tobago, sincerely, from me, Keaton Shaw, the team at AM Prime, and from all of us at WESN Content Capsule, happy 62nd Independence Anniversary. We are celebrating independence, and I hope that going forward, we all are very much open with our eyes and open with our mind. TNT has a lot of great things, a lot of sweet things. Ultimately, we need to bring that back. And we speak about unity, we speak about appreciation and love for one another. But let it not just be words, let it be actions. In the little things that you do, always think positive, act positive, speak positive. Let your actions help one another and not derail one another. Let's not hurt one another. TNT, you're sweet. I love you very much. I will always love you, and you will always be in my heart. Happy 62nd Independence. From all of us here at AM Prime and WESN. And that's it. We are out. I'm Keaton Shaw. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. From Josh Alexander from My Word and I. We'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
there are websites that track ships in real time, showing their locations around the world. But in this case, no LNG carrier was reported near Arctic LNG 2 on the date of the satellite image. However, by looking at the few ships in the region at that time, by cross-referencing with satellite images, analysts managed to identify it as a ship called the Pioneer. The problem is, if you search for the Pioneer on the day of the satellite image, it's supposed to be off the coast of Norway. But look now at its alleged trajectory. It's very strange. It seems to have been circling for about 10 days. And we also looked at satellite imagery of the area where the vessel claimed to be, but all we could see was an empty sea. So everything suggests that this LNG carrier sent a fake location signal, pretending to be off the coast of Norway while it was actually refueling with gas in Russia. And this is a practice known as spoofing, which is typical of dark fleets.
So what about the destination of the Pioneer's cargo? I mean, who could buy this gas, seeing as it's subject to US sanctions?
Yeah, so there's a lot of uncertainty on this. We do not yet know who is buying, but what we know is that after loading up, the Pioneer traveled west around Europe before reaching the Mediterranean Sea, and their satellite images show it north of the Suez Canal next to another LNG carrier. Analysts believe that this might have been a ship-to-ship transfer. This is a practice that is also typical of dark fleets because it helps obscure the origin of the gas. In fact, it's highly unlikely that this gas found a buyer in Europe because any party facilitating this Arctic LNG 2 project, even indirectly, would be subject to US sanctions. So the buyers might rather be companies that are less reliant on the US dollar, for instance, in China or in India. You also have to keep in mind that this gas could be sold at discount, which could be of interest to some buyers.
And you've also found that the Pioneer isn't the only ship in the dark fleet.
Yes, two other ships managed by the same company have also been caught spoofing off the coast of Norway. One of them was spotted at the Arctic LNG 2 port. And beyond faking their location, these three ships share several characteristics typical of dark fleets. They are old. They have been recently transferred to companies that were previously unknown. They have no insurance, and they're also registered under a flag of convenience, meaning a flag of a country that's not their own. It's of course difficult to know who is behind these companies, but many analysts believe they are likely linked to Russia.
So does all this mean then it's confirmed that a dark fleet is being built for gas?
Well, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, these LNG carriers are not icebreakers, so they could only transport LNG for a few weeks each year, because the Arctic Ocean is covered in ice for most of the year. Unloading LNG is also much more complicated than oil, and there are far fewer ships designed to transport LNG than there are for oil. So LNG carriers are easier to track. And lastly, as you mentioned, the US sanctioned these three ships and their manager last Friday, accusing Russia of being behind them. This could further complicate the sale of these LNG cargoes.
All right, Lise Kinneman from our Observer's Desk, thanks so much for sharing your findings with us. You can find all the details of that investigation on the France 24 website at observers.france24.com. Well, that's it from me, but do stay tuned for more news coming up very shortly here on France 24.
Да, укрытия необходимы. Хорошо, что их поставили на площади, поскольку все-таки, несмотря на текущую политическую обстановку, в центре города гуляет постоянно большое количество людей. И в случае воздушной тревоги, которая неожиданно застает, иметь укрытие – это очень-очень хорошо.
Укрытия нужны. Если какая-то ситуация случится, людям будет где спрятаться.
Ну, прям стопроцентную гарантию не дает, но лучше, чем ничего. Правильно?
Trust is our most precious asset. Every day, around the world, France 24, RFI and Monte Carlo Doualier join forces to bring you free, independent, verified, balanced information that fights manipulation, and in 21 languages. France Média Monde has been awarded the Journalism Trust Initiative Standard, which guarantees the professionalism and reliability of our international news media with a score of 100%. Trust is not automatic. It must be earned and cultivated. Thank you for your trust.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hello, I'm Annette Young, the host of the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Join us each week as we talk to and report on those working to boost gender equity. You can catch the show on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi Magnesh. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Government's legislative focus, Tobago self-governance and campaign finance reform. Tutor urges teachers to ignore unapproved work assignments. 2024 Secondary Schools Football League season kicks off with Fatima versus Presentation College. And internationally, CIA says swift concert plotters plan to kill a huge number. Now for the details. As the government enters its final year in office, Tobago internal self-governance and campaign finance reform are set to dominate the legislative agenda. At a post-cabinet briefing on August 28th, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley confirmed that Parliament will reconvene on September 9th to save key legislative items, including the Miscellaneous Provisions Bill 2024, which targets tax transparency and ending tax evasion. The Prime Minister also emphasized the importance of addressing the Elections and Boundaries Commission reports, as well as advancing campaign finance reform, which has been under review since 2020. Additionally, Dr. Rowley highlighted that the government expects an updated report from the Salaries Review Commission in the coming days, following the rejection of their last report in March. The Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association is reminding its members not to report to work if their assigned school is closed. In an advisory on August 28th, tutor President Martin Lumpkin emphasized that teachers should only report to the school assigned by the Teaching Service Commission, and any instructions to work elsewhere should be ignored. He urged members to report any intimidation attempts immediately. This comes as schools prepare to reopen on September 2nd, following the July-August vacation. On August 27th, teachers protested outside the Ministry of Education, demanding resolution for over $34 million in overdue medical insurance claims, some of which date back to July 2023. This was the third protest action taken by the union in recent weeks. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education announced that Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gaspi-Dolly will commission 3 schools on August 30th, including the newly constructed Sisters Road Anglican Primary School in New Grants and the refurbished St. George's College in Barataria. The 2024 Secondary Schools Football League kicks off on Saturday, September 7th, with reigning champions Fatima College facing Intercol title holders Presentation College of San Fernando at the Diego Martin Sporting Complex. This year's 60th Secondary School Football League edition will feature over 7,000 athletes from 101 schools competing across both boys and girls divisions. 16 teams will contest the Premier Division, including Fatima, Presentation College, and 4-time champions Naparima College. Returning stars, including Player of the Year Michael Chaves, are expected to bolster the team as they aim to defend their National League title. The girls' competition also promises excitement, with Scarborough Secondary and Pleasantville Secondary tipped as favorites. In international news, the CIA says the suspects in the foiled plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna wanted to kill a huge number of